Hello and welcome back to Arsenal Domination, where I want to continue the theme of what I was sort of touching on a little bit after the disappointing result against Everton at the weekend. And that's where Arsenal's issues lie and how they can be fixed. Fundamentally in football, it's an easy game. You need to score goals and stop the other team scoring. Arsenal, relative to what we'd expect and demand from the club, have struggled a little bit with both this season. Now, I think the defensive issues are somewhat unfortunate, somewhat beyond the control of the manager. I think they are largely down to injuries and having to make changes to prevent further injuries given players are out. And I'm thinking here mostly about Timber, given his big injury he had last year and the fact that there are no obvious or natural replacements for him at right back, as well as a plethora of injuries we've had to other players: White, Tomiyasu, Timber, Calafiori, Saliba, um, the non-existent Tierney, Zinchenko, Miles Lewis-Kelly. I mean, nearly every defender, I think, bar Saliba, has had an injury at some point this season, and Kivior. So 2 out of our 9 defenders have not had an injury issue this season, one of which was suspended for a game. Um, but I think they fix themselves as and when injuries cease to exist, and I think we've seen a better defensive performance from us in the last few games. So that's not really where the concern is. For me, the concern is in the attack. I think that's a real issue. Now, a lot of that focus will be on the striker. I'm going to touch on that in a little bit. But I think coming out of the summer window, I felt we were one light in the attack. And again, I'm going to sort of cover that in terms of how Arsenal addressed that this season. But I do think that one player light in attack has not really helped us because it does limit the options and that Mikel Arteta has coming off the bench should he choose to use them. And of course, one of those options in particular season he hasn't. And it does make us slightly more predictable. And that is a real issue. And we've seen this issue most evidently against sides that have no intention of coming to attack us. They've come to set up defensively in a very low block or even a medium low block. And you can see it, in the Newcastle, Bournemouth, Fulham, Man United, most recently against Everton, where we have sort of struggled to, outside of set pieces, to break those teams down. And you need to be able to, because they're the results, with the possible exception of Newcastle away, good as Bournemouth are, good as Fulham have been this season, where you need to get positive results more often than not, and significantly more often than not. And we should be able to and need to be able to break them down either from open play or from set pieces. Set pieces should be the second, third option rather than sort of the first backup option. And I just want to quickly explore what I think we can do about that and why that is. So I think on why it is, Arsenal are overly reliant on that right-hand side. Over 45% of our attacks this season have come down. If you divide the pitch into three, the left side, the central, and the right side, over 45% of our attacks have come down that right flank. Now, we're excellent down that right flank. It's where 2 of our best players in Odegaard and Saka play. White slightly inside of Saka. And so it does make sense for us to attack down that side. And Arsenal also look to overload that side when they attack, with the right back coming forward, Odegaard tucking in, Saka coming in, Havertz comes in short and then might peel away into the middle, or whoever that striker is. Plus our 6 sort of tends to come on that side. And that does limit the space for us to move the ball around. But it's also this season what we have seen is the teams have overly flooded that side. Knowing that we're going to trust that and knowing that there have been issues on our left side, it makes us a little bit more predictable. Now, Saka's got goals from there, but that shows his class. But I think if you can vary that attack slightly by using the left more, I think that might create more space for Saka to get goals. And we saw that to some extent against Monaco, where that first goal essentially came from us attacking well down the left-hand side. Lewis-Kelly releases Jesus, who crosses the ball in, and Saka, tucks it in at the far post. That's because we'd attacked slightly more down that left side and it created the space on the right where our best players were. So I think that's number one of where we can, or where the issues lie, is that the right side is too overly used. Second one, and I touched on it earlier, we're not mixing Alpha Bunt from the bench. Raheem Sterling barely played today, this season. We know what we're going to get from Trossard and Martinelli, and teams kind of know how to defend it. Jesus is offering us nothing. Ranieri is just a kid. He's done really well. Um, but it does mean that we haven't got the options on the bench. Well, I think we have got the options on the bench to some extent. They're not necessarily in great form, but they're not being used. And there's been a reluctance to really change up tactically, go two up top or whatever it looks like. When things aren't working, we will just make like for like changes. And that's where Mikel Arteta does have to take some responsibility. And I think that lack of mixing up is not helping. And then I think the third reason here is the tempo. It's been evident in recent weeks that the tempo has been quite slow, particularly in the first half of games. And when you're trying to break down a low block, I think you have to move the ball quicker. Make it difficult, try and pull players out of position. So it kind of links back to the first point where you need to use both sides slightly more, but you need to move that ball. It might be sideways to pull them out of position and then look for that through ball, but it has to move at speed rather than slow and ponderous. And I think Arsenal have been too slow and ponderous at set times this season. I think control is important in games. I think Arsenal control games really well. We controlled both of the recent disappointing results against Fulham and Everton well, but we didn't create enough chances for us to score goals in either game. Not really. And I think Arsenal just almost have the handbrake on it too much in terms of the tempo and the willingness to create chances. Not willingness, of course, they want to create chances, but the ability to. And I think that is hindering us. And I think all that means that while we are missing a fair proportion of our chances, I think that is true, albeit somewhat overblown as a narrative to beat Arsenal with. I think it's more the fact that we're not creating the chances for our number 9 that is the real issue. So what can Arsenal do about that? Well, I spoke about the imbalance between the way they attack, and I think that can somewhat be helped if we get a settled left back in. Calafiori, I think when he was fit, that looked like it was going there. Recently, Miles Lewis-Skelly has sort of stepped up there, and I think that has improved things. And I think the much maligned Moreno has helped as well. Having that left footer in that left 8 position is helping quite a lot. I think the side does look more balanced, and I think as he gets more used to the side, having missed pre-season with that injury, I think he will get better in that role, and that will help. I do like on Martinelli and Trossard the difference. I think that different option down the left is quite helpful. We talked about mixing it up a little bit there. I don't think either of them have been in the best of form or the most consistent of form this season, to be honest. And that is an issue, but that's probably one for the transfer market rather than themselves. But, I mentioned trying Raheem Sterling there or Jesus there. Just something different just to mix it up is another thing Arsenal can do. And just rotate that squad a little bit more. Bring a little bit of a surprise down that side in that left flank. That will keep teams guessing a little bit more. We'll switch over the wingers. Saka goes over there for 10 minutes. I wouldn't want him to go over there permanently. He's very good down the right. But something like that just causes teams to think a little bit more. And then I think the other thing is Kai Havertz. I think he needs to be more central. I'm not going to blame Kai Havertz for this. I think he's doing what he's been asked to do. And actually, I see him as a facilitator in that striker role. I compare him a lot to Bobby Firmino when he was at Liverpool in his prime, where he wouldn't necessarily be the one that gets the goal or even be involved in it, but he'd create space with his movement. And I think that's a plus side, along with his pressing and, the issues he causes that way for defenders. And in fairness to him, as we approach the halfway stage of the season, he is on for 20 goals in all competitions this season, which I think people doubted he would get. I think he will get there, and especially if the attack improves in the second half, I think he'll get there comfortably. But I do think he needs to be more central. And that will allow us to have that option in the middle to be in those areas when the balls come across to score goals. So I think that's the things that we can do now without new personnel. But I think we do have to look at the January transfer window. Now, the summer window wasn't the window we wanted. As fans, we were hoping for more. But it was the one, if we're honest, what we were told we were going to get. So it shouldn't necessarily be surprising. And it was also... It wasn't really a big active summer for the top teams across Europe, which suggests Arsenal weren't the only ones struggling to land their top targets this season. Now, we should probably reflect here on, okay, we haven't got Nico Williams, or we haven't got Sesko, or we haven't got whoever. in. What was our plan B? I think that's fair. You know, Arsenal in the past have struggled with that, but they've also gone to plan Bs. You know, Kivior coming in. Maybe that was a market opportunity, or Trossard instead of Mudryk, which is quite good, but only if your plan B is the player you want. Now, we don't know who Arsenal's plan B was. We don't know if they approached them and couldn't get them, or whether they just didn't fancy them. We don't know. We also don't know what the PSR situation was. Would suggest that that was tight, given the fact that Arsenal were reflecting on the fact that this was an issue for them in terms of that why the window was quiet. Whether they had to get players out before they could sort of buy, and it came too late with almost deadline day deals for some of those players to get the money in, or not, I don't know. But if there is money there, and I would expect Arsenal would be able to find some from somewhere, but especially with those late deals for Nketiah, Ramsdale, and Smith Rowe, that they need to go out there. Now, that's not going to be a top target. I wouldn't expect to see a Gyökeres or an Isak or a Williams come in. I think they probably want to stay where they are for now, and they're more for the summer anyway. But secondly, if the money situation, and it isn't if, we don't know, was as tight as suggested, that will make that quite difficult. But I think there are options out there for us that we can get done now where it won't break the bank and don't preclude us from getting deals done in the summer. So previously just Jonathan David is one option, but I think there was another couple of options out there. One is a Premier League player, and that's Umbermo. He's 25 years of old. He plays for Brentford. He can play up top or on the right. And I'd see him as a Jesus replacement in the squad going forward. Maybe you have both of them for the rest of this season and move Jesus on in the summer, because I think his time is done. But he's left-footed, so I think he'd be a good profile match as a backup for Saka. And I think he'd probably accept that role. Brentford to Arsenal, with all due respect for Brentford, is a big move. So I think he'd expect that and accept that role as a backup to him in the squad. He's 4 seasons worth of experience in the Premier League. That's good. And he's got 12 goal involvements this season in all competitions, following on from 16 last year, which suggests he's going to improve there. I think as a player, he's quick. He's got a good engine. And he's quite direct, which would offer Arsenal that something different I was talking about, and add an element of unpredictability to our play. He's a good mover. He's intelligent. He can drift across the line quite nicely. And again, that just adds to that unpredictability. His passing possibly needs a bit of refinement. It's a bit difficult to say because of the different ways that Arsenal and Brentford play. But he does have the technical ability to receive and use both feet, which would suggest he probably has the technical attributes Arsenal would be looking for as a player. And I think given Brentford probably unlikely to qualify for Europe and definitely not going down this season, may well be open to a sale. Would it come cheap? I don't think so, but I think it would probably be affordable. And crucially, as I keep saying, it wouldn't preclude us from going out and getting another forward. That's what I was talking about there with Jonathan David, and I think Mbeumo falls into that category. I think a couple of other options you could look at would be potentially Eze from Palace, not lighting it up this season, but we know he has the ability. Probably more of a midfielder than a forward option, so not my first choice for this window. But he does have that sort of extra spark in him. I think that would make him a nice addition now. Plus, with the fact that we're going to have to turn over the midfield a little bit in the summer, I think that would really help us from that point of view. Do that piece of business now. Well, as I say, unpredictability from the bench. Or I'd Gulu on loan. I think that would be a risky option. I think he's a very talented young player, but he's limited sort of game experience. And when you're going for a title, is he the man? But that's, we just don't know. We don't have enough of a sample size for him. Which is why I'd prefer Mbeumo or David if Arsenal are getting business done. So I think the main fix for Arsenal will come in the summer in terms of personnel. But I think there's both internal and external solutions that are affordable that Arsenal could look at. And that's just some of them. This video's gone on slightly longer than I intended. I never really planned these too much, so you never know. But as I say, Arsenal are at a crossroads, and they need to find those solutions. It's what I said on, for a couple of weeks now. Well, no, about a week now after this poor week, and I still think it's true now. But as I say, let me know what you think the realistic options are for Arsenal in January and how they fix the issue they currently have at the moment. in the comments. But as I say, I don't think the season's over. I think it is still salvageable. I really do. But Arsenal have to find those solutions fast. They have to find them now. And as I say, I think those are the things I would be looking at if I was Mikel Arteta. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you all soon. Thanks. Bye.